This is November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. This day was started in 1990. Recognition of this day was started in 1990, in the 1990s, and the UN confirmed it as an international day, official on their calendar in 1999. It's important to, especially, to do the observation of this day this year, because we have two pandemics going on. One is the pandemic of domestic violence. The other is, of course, the COVID pandemic. And of course, the COVID pandemic is making domestic violence worse in many situations because of economic downturns, because of the need to stay at home all the time. And so these two pandemics meet, and on this day, we really need to talk about that. There are two symbols for the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. One is the white ribbon, and that has been in use since the 1990s, I believe, and in part symbolizes the idea that we need men and boys to be allies in our search for to end violence against women. The other, we've been talking about the orange clothing, orange signs. Orange the world is what the UN asks us to do this year, and calls for 16 days of consideration and exploration of solutions for the problems of violence against women and girls. And we are called to fund, respond, prevent, and collect data on violence against women. We can do all of those things in listening to this presentation today, I believe. I think you will have an opportunity to think about all those ways of meeting that. And the 16 days ends on Human Rights Day in December. So keep violence prevention in your mind during that time, and all the time as well. Our first speaker is Elgiva Dora Shullai. She is a member of the International Women's Convocation Board. She's a registered nurse and was an officer in the prestigious Armed Forces Medical and Nursing Service. She works with Seng Kynthei, which is the women's wing of the Unitarian Church in Northeast India. She's the Global Sisters Coordinator, and in that role, she has supervised health camps. She has organized violence program and a violence prevention programming, and some very successful women's leadership development programming. In 2014, she organized the first White Ribbon campaign, working with the Unitarian churches in Northeast India on elimination of violence against women and children. And that program is now in its 14th year. And Elgiva, would you please talk with us about your programs?
Yes, Carol, thank you so much. Can we put off this slide for some time, Jofi? So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm here with my members of the family, all sitting to watch and listen to this program. I just want to show you a small paper-sized poster which was made by my niece. This is depicting domestic violence on one side and the coronavirus on the other side, and women and children are struggling in between. Then I also wanted to show you, we have printed in our last few years of doing the White Ribbon campaign, these small small pamphlets, which we have the White Ribbon Pledge. So it is actually originally in Khasi, and then now we have also translated it to English, and we have distributed to everybody during our programs. So I hope we'll be able to read this pledge together at the end of the program. I will just give you an overview, which will take about 5 minutes before I hand over the mic to my colleagues. The Unitarian Women Northeast India conveys their regards and best wishes to all of you attendees. The Seng Kynthei Unitarian Union Northeast India have deepened and strengthened our connection with UU women from all over the world after we met at the first International Convocation of Women in Houston in 2009. Since then, our bonds have grown stronger over the years, and we have worked together in collaboration with the IWC, or the International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women, in various projects to educate and enable women to develop comprehensively, create awareness, and educate women on sexual and reproductive health and rights of women and girls, pursuing personal safety, eradicate violence, and empower women and girls with the knowledge they require, thereby improving, bettering, uplifting, enriching, and finally ensuring a safer, healthier, and promising future. As the saying goes, when we educate a woman, we educate the whole family and eventually the community too. With active support of the funding panels and guidance of the IWC, the Seng Kynthei have been able to conduct various awareness programs, 6-module leadership training school, gender sensitization workshops, introducing the men-led White Ribbon campaign, and violence prevention programs for women and girls in many congregations, schools and colleges, and also in the communities. In a span of 6 to 7 years, we have had about 30 programs and educate about 1,000 women in the Khasi, Jaintia, and Karbi districts of the Northeast India, and the results were very positive. Women are slowly but steadily emerging as leaders in their churches and communities. They have broken the silence and reported crimes against them to the authorities. But we still have a long way to gain control of this menace, with social media crimes on the rise that deeply affects the health and have taken the lives of many young women and girls. We are also working towards self-sustenance by continuous training, advocacy, and educating our very own young women at the grassroots level. In many places, basic rights of women, which are basic human rights, have not been met. Every day, I see a pregnant woman walking quite a distance just to fetch drinking water. Every day, women are missing their basic health care checkup for many reasons. Young women still hurry home every evening down the dark streets, not knowing what lies in wait for them. Women suffer from psychological and financial violence and social bullying because they are not even allowed to wear even a subtle makeup or buy a pair of shoes or even a pair of earrings, for that matter, if they really want to. I'm left to think whether I should stop my car to help someone who appears stranded or in trouble. Every day I see 5 to 7 cases of child abuse and pornography, rapes and murders, and the list goes on. All these are happening right in front of our eyes. Imagine what happened beyond closed doors. My colleagues will soon give us pictures of increasing violence against women and girls, especially during this COVID onslaught. And later, all of us will share our ideas so that we can all benefit from this webinar. So as responsible parents, we have a huge task in front of us to create, maintain, and sustain a safe and healthy community, respecting the inherent worth and dignity of every individual. I take this opportunity to thank our supporters, funders, collaborators, mentors, our family members, women from different capacities, resource persons, our leaders in the Unitarian Union Northeast India, men and women who are supporting us time and again to ensure smooth implementation of all our projects. You are our driving force. So please continue to support us in all our endeavors so that we can make a change in people's lives. The road is narrow and long, but we are all in this together, a community of communities for a better future. We have also published a leadership handbook for women in Khasi that was compiled out of our leadership programs. And I want to show you this scarf. This scarf was presented to all the women who have finished their 6-module leadership training program. And it's yellow, which is the color of the day, orange, and the seal of the Unitarian chalice. So they proudly have all this scarf with them. I conclude with these words. When no song comes out of a woman's heart, when no smile comes out of a woman's face, there is something not right in that woman's world. So let us be aware and reach out. I also urge all men, if they are present here, who are our partners and a part of the solution, to act now for the safety of the mothers, wives, nieces and daughters, partners and friends, and for all those who have and will always continue to make their lives more beautiful, meaningful, and worth living. With these few words, I hand over the screen to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Elgiva. Thank you very much. A beautiful start for us. Our next speaker is Dr. Rica Lamar. Dr. Rica is a medical doctor. She is also a member of the Unitarian Church of Madan Laban in Shillong. She is co-founder of the Manbha Foundation, which works on issues related to drug abuse, HIV, health and welfare for women and children. She is vice chair of the Meghalaya State Commission on Women and a member of the Committee on the Prevention of Sexual Abuse of Women in Workplaces. With Seng Kynthei, she is an ongoing, active, important resource and a keynoter on issues related to reproductive health, gender equity, and violence issues as well. Dr. Rica, please give us more information that we need on this vital issue today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Rica Lamar from the Khasi Hills, and I am presenting now my PowerPoint presentation on the shadow pandemic of violence against women. This is particularly with regards to how domestic violence has grown during this period. Next, please. Next. As you all know, since April 2020's lockdown, there were 4 billion people who remained at home as a safety precaution from the global contagion of the COVID-19. However, this brought another deadly danger, and that is the shadow pandemic of violence against women. Even prior to COVID-19, domestic violence was already the peak of human rights violation. And as the pandemic continues, the number of women and girls facing domestic violence has grown exponentially. Next, please. So now I'd just like to share some light on the relationship between the pandemic and domestic violence. Just in short, for you all to get a better understanding of what domestic violence is, this is family violence. This is behavior of a family member that is violent, threatening, coercive, or controlling. It may be a spouse, it may be a partner, it may be a mother in law, or any family member of the spouse, the husband's side. This is the domestic violence definition taken from the Domestic Violence Act of 2005 that we have here in India. And I think the rest of the world also would agree to this definition. So, in family violence, we see physical, emotional, and psychological abuse, sexual assault, economic control, and social isolating behavior. So, during this pandemic, we see victims of family violence being trapped with their abusers to a very high degree, and they are cut off from the usual respite of going out to work or school. So we see that crises like pandemics and natural disasters cause an uptick in family violence. Next, please. So, first of all, pandemics are situations that upend people's lives, so triggering abusers to lash out against their victims to regain some semblance of control over a situation. And secondly, we see social support systems like family, friends, or other sympathetic allies are distanced because of the containment measures. And thirdly, the corona crisis is likely to push the world's economy into recession, so making it even more difficult for victims to leave abusive relationships. Next, please. So, the causes or the cases of domestic and other forms of violence are underreported. And the reasons for this is that victims feel that their abusers have a higher chance of finding out about if they were to reach out for help. Then limiting women's and girls' access to phones and helplines, which we see here, especially in India, or the unavailability of helplines due to cut down of staff, or the intervening public services like police, justice, and social services and crisis shelters may be taking necessary precautions and therefore close their doors if they deem the risk of infection to be high. I shall be talking about this point when I talk about our cases here in the Khasi Hills. Next, please. So, just to look at the general Indian scenario, uh, we see that even in India, there has been a rise in the number of domestic violence complaints. The National Commission for Women records Distress calls doubling from 123 to 239 domestic violence complaints. That is from March 23rd, 2020 to April 16, 2020. That is just like a 3 weeks period. Then we also see that since the nationwide lockdown, domestic violence complaints have increased by 2.5 times. And in 2019, the Commission received 607 cases between March to May, but registered 1,477 cases in 2020 in the same duration. Next, please. So now we come to our state of Meghalaya, and here uh, we see that the Meghalaya State Commission for Women's have registered, we look at the data of registered domestic violence and other forms of violence cases. This is for a period from April 2020 to October 2020. If you look at this pie chart that is here, you see that 81% of the cases of violence are domestic violence and maintenance cases. That is 57 cases. Then we look at physical assault, which comprises 6%, murders 4%, rape 1%, rape and murder 1, then molestation 1%, sexual harassment 1%, sexual abuse 1%, and sexual harassment at workplace 1%. Next, please. We see that the reasons for physical as well as verbal abuse, as reported, are quite trivial. For example, like not managing resources properly, not serving food on time, or not being able to procure any ration or relief material. Uh, what I mean by DV for those, it's just a short form for domestic violence. And when I'm talking about maintenance, maintenance means, where it is a form of financial or economic abuse, where the husband is not providing money or financial assistance to the wife and the children. So, in that way, they come to the Women's Commission and they are being helped out in getting their maintenance or their financial assistance from the husband. So, coming back to the slide, we see that physical abuse by male members of the family when stressed at being incapable of providing for the families due to loss of livelihood. And according to the National Family Health Survey, it is 4% of women bring often encounter physical or sexual violence. And this is, we see in our own state and in the Khasi Hills, a very common reason for domestic violence. Uh, Women don't raise their voices and keep tolerating. This is one of the clients who stated this. Next, please. So in India, we see that only 46% of women in urban areas have access to their own mobile phones, while only 37% do in rural areas. This is according to the National Family Health Survey 4. And also, we see that the lack of awareness of women on their rights or the process of seeking help is another contributor to silence on the issue. Next, please. So now I'll just talk on a broader uh, uh, area with regards to the governmental measures to address violence in India. So there is like, as I had spoken earlier, an act called the Protection of Women from Domestic Act 2005. And under this act, the state governments appoint these protection officers in each district. So these protection officers or POs, they can be members of either non-governmental or government organization. So these victims report to these protection officers who then take up their cases. But what has happened during the COVID time is due to lockdown, uh, the victims are not able to reach the protection officers because there has been a lockdown and officers are not functioning, the staff are not being able to attend work. But the Delhi High Court has had directed the concerned authorities to consider appointing temporary POs to address the shadow pandemic, of which we in Manbha Foundation have taken up being uh, registered service providers under this act. We have taken up this uh, duty of providing help for these victims. Next. So we also see, can we go to the next slide, Sophie?
Yes, I'm trying again. You
Uh,
can, yeah.
So, well, apart from this, we have also what they call as phone up programs, where the social welfare workers check up on or contact women who have complained about domestic violence. Then we also have uh, the National Commission for Women has launched a special WhatsApp helpline number, which I think even Jiba has put up, Elgiva has put up this number. This is an exclusive helpline for domestic violence complaints during the lockdown. Then we also have the Ministry of Women and Child Development. They have developed a quick response mechanism to assist victims of domestic violence during the lockdown by providing psychological and legal counseling. And in some cities, they have designated certain pharmacies or grocery stores as safe spaces for women, increasing the availability of tele or online legal and counseling services and conducting awareness campaigns. Next, please. Now, if you look at non-governmental measures, not much has really been done during the lockdown because of uh, the closure of many institutions. We are looking at two non-governmental institutions. That is the SCUNEI, that is the Seng Kynthei Unitarian Union of Northeastern India. They have taken up various social projects to help in the fight against COVID-19 during this lockdown period. We see that many of the women of the locality, they handle the community quarantine centers. Then a number of Unitarian families that were badly affected had been aided financially. Next, please. And then we see that now uh, we have an upcoming project uh, which along with the IWC. And then right now we're having the 55 campaign, which Elgiva will be talking about. So this upcoming project is the prevention of spread of COVID-19 in the community. And in this, uh, there will be awareness programs which will teach people or educate people on the modes of transmission and ways of prevention of the COVID infection, behavior change in the community, the prevention of stigma and discrimination of infected individuals, the mental impact of the pandemic, addressing domestic violence and other forms of violence, and underage marriages. So this is a project which we are hoping to start very soon from the Seng Kynthei. Next, please. Now, as you all know in the introduction, I am the secretary of Manbha Foundation, an NGO. Uh, I'm also the founding member and the doctor in charge. And we, under Manbha Foundation, the organization that I'm working in, we have the Lamjingshai project. This Lamjingshai project is working with women and particularly with single mothers, the female sex workers, and the LGBTQ communities. And as I said earlier, we are the service provider under the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act 2005. So under this, we have three women. That is our project manager, Ms. Samantha Panwar, a counselor, Ms. Bahun Langmundo, I'm the doctor in charge, and we have two other outreach workers who are also women. So these are just photographs of some of our women who have undergone domestic violence. You can see the physical abuse that has taken place. Next, please. Uh, So the Manbha Foundation cases of domestic violence and other forms of violence against women. This is statistics that we of the cases that we got from March 2020 to November 2020. We got 9 cases of domestic violence, which accounts for 47% of the violence against women. Then we have the uh, POXO cases. The POXO cases are mm, basically this is an act. It's called the Protection of Children's Sexual Offense Act 2012, in which we had 4 cases of children that is below 18 years of age facing who have been molested or raped. Then we've had 2 cases of forced eviction by the tenants of 2 women during this COVID period for simple reasons of having a male company in them with them, and one of the women being drunk, so they were forced out in the middle of the night. Then we have 2 rape cases, uh, then physical assault of 2 transgender women. So this is the data that we have from Manbha Foundation. So a little bit of what we have been doing, how we've been helping these women during this period, because as I said earlier, they are not able to go to the protection officers who are government officials. So these victims, they call up our project manager or our outreach workers, and they go for home visits, and they do the counseling of both the partners, the husband and wife. And in certain cases where there is danger to the woman's life, the police have been contacted, and the police have taken up the various cases. And we are still continuing with the counseling of these women. And in a certain case, the children of the women were kept in a shelter home for children to to give them protection. So these are some of the ways that we have been helping these women. Next slide, please. So quickly, how do we address this violence? What are the challenges in addressing this violence? We see that among women who seek help, most look to family, friends, and NGO workers rather than formal institutions and mechanisms. Like I said, many of these women would rather come to us who are NGO workers than go to a government officer because of the many formalities that are involved there. And when even when laws exist, they are not implemented due to non-functioning of offices during lockdown. Then we look at non-heterosexual women, like our trans women, who face violence, okay, and they cannot seek help because of the stigma and discrimination. Then we also see women with disabilities. They are 2 to 4 times more likely to experience partner violence. And then we look at disability related stigma and discrimination, which adds to women's vulnerability and hinders seeking help. Then we also, next please, next slide. We also look at women and girls who face psychological violence through social media, like cyber stalking, unwanted attention. So these are also groups of women and girls who find it difficult to get help. And then, of course, underage married girls facing domestic violence or sexual abuse by a family member. Next, please. So, to end my presentation, I would just like to say that in conclusion that COVID-19 is already testing us in ways most of us have previously never experienced, providing emotional and economic shocks that we are struggling to rise above. The violence that is emerging now as a dark feature of this pandemic is a mirror and a challenge to our values, our resilience, and shared humanity. We must not only survive COVID-19, but emerge renewed with women as a powerful force at the center of recovery. A strong woman looks a challenge in the eye and gives it away. Gina Carey. Kublai, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rica. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
We have one more 10-minute speaker on the schedule today, and I would like to welcome her, Karunakaroi Lamar. She worked as in the social welfare department for the government of Meghalaya for 33 years. And she retired from that position as deputy director of that department. She is now a member of the Meghalaya State Commission for Women. And she is chairperson of Seng Kynthei in her Unitarian congregation at Shullai. And I apologize for mistakes I've made in pronunciations. I get very nervous about that. I mean no disrespect. I try to work on it, but sometimes my mouth gets tangled up. But welcome, Karuna. Please share your information with us.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, afternoon, evening to all, whatever be your time zone. I am Karunakaroi Lamar, and my topic for today's webinar is Violence Against Women in the Khasi and Jaintia Hills, Meghalaya. Let me start with a little introduction of our state. Meghalaya is one of the 7 sister states and located in the northeastern part of India. Geographically, the northeastern states are located in the east of the country. However, because of its location between a number of mountain ranges, the eastern Himalayas in the north, the Naga Hills in the east, the Mizo and Tripura Hills in the south, and the Shillong Plateau in the west, the region being secluded from the mainland is dubbed as the Northeastern Steppe. The name Meghalaya is of Sanskrit origin and means the abode of clouds, an apt description of the state housing panoramic skies. It is home to the Khasi, Garo, and Jaintia tribes, all 3 of whom follow a matrilineal and matrilocal system. It is unfortunately still a patriarchal society with men primarily overseeing the functionings of society. Even with the structure of our society, violence against women is nevertheless a common problem we face. Next slide. The Seng Kynthei of the Unitarian Union of Northeast India, SKUUNEI, has dedicated itself to the women folk of the state and collaborating with the International Women's Convocation of Unitarian Universalists, IWCUU, is working towards reducing this problem by implementing various awareness and empowerment projects and activities. Next. Next. The questions of how and why violent crimes are so prevalent comes to mind. The leading causes are alcoholism, a major contributor of domestic violence, the need to keep problems under wraps to preserve family reputation, creating a social taboo, the low level of education of the population contributes to a lack in knowledge and awareness of women's rights and sex education, and no access to professional counseling, leaving victims helpless. The media also plays a pivotal role in the rise of violent crimes with its reportage of low rates of conviction of perpetrators, discouraging victims from stepping forward, as well as the spread of misinformation of violent and sexual crimes that negatively influence adults and youngsters. Next. The Seng Kynthei takes a stand in the prevention of violence against women by conducting awareness programs on the violence faced by women, launching the White Ribbon campaign, and standing in solidarity with women over the world, conducting informative talks over the radio, and celebrating International Women's Day every 8th March. Our objectives for conducting these programs is mainly to educate and empower women and to raise awareness about toxic relationships and how they can lead to domestic violence, sensitizing men to the reality of violence against women and employing their cooperation in its prevention, as well as bringing the community together and working as a collective in reducing violence against women. The next two slides are photographs of a few of the awareness programs conducted. Next. The outcome we hope to achieve is for women and girls to become empowered, aware of their rights, have the required knowledge on where and whom to seek help from, and eventually dismantling the social stigma of coming forward and speaking up about violence in the home. The White Ribbon campaign was launched in Meghalaya at Maukasiang village in the East Khasi Hills district on 19th November October 2014. The campaign has aided greatly in raising awareness about the dimensions of violence faced by our women and the subsequent tackling of this commonly faced problem. Next. Here is the pledge recited at every White Ribbon campaign conducted. There have been two radio talks conducted till date. The first on the White Ribbon campaign, presented by Dr. Rica Lamar and Major Elgiva Dora Shullai retired on 21st November 2015. It included the history of the movement, its launch, significance worldwide, as well as to the Seng Kynthei Unitarian Union Northeast India in particular, the importance and meaning of the pledge and symbol of the white ribbon. The second was on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, presented by Major Elgiva Dora Shullai retired on 25th November 2016, reiterating the importance and significance of the white ribbon symbol and pledge. Next. This is the new project of the Seng Kynthei titled Personal Safety Education Program, Keeping Children Safe, Grades 3 to 6. The project will be centered on children from the ages of 7 and 8 to 11 years and will be taught about understanding their bodies and differentiating between safe and unsafe touches, the difference between bad and good secrets, the importance of safety, existing rules of child protection, and which adults can be trusted for sharing and reporting of distressing information. Next. The training for this project will involve understanding gender norms, and the inequality brought by it, the short-term and long-term trauma caused by sexual abuse, and the need to report it and how to handle the different types of abuse-related confessions. The facilitators will be made familiar with the protection of children from Sexual Offences Act 2012 and child rights according to the UN Convention, along with demonstrations on how to use kits and tools. There will be a total of 30 participants in the group who will be trained for the project for a period of 2.5 and 3 days. That concludes my presentation on violence against women in the Khasi and Jaintia Hills, Meghalaya. Thank you for lending me your time and ears, Kublai and Karunakaroi.
Thank you so much, Karuna. To all of our presenters, Elgiva, Dr. Rica, Karuna, wonderful ideas, facts, pictures that will help us to understand and frame this important issue.